This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, November the 25th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's producer. Let's get it going. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. Almost forgot what it was. All right, yeah. Good start. All right, check in on the Olympic trials, men's curling. So Team Guju going up against Matt Dunstone, the number one rink in the country. 9-7 defeat. They dropped their record of 3-1. Dunstone 4-0. A couple of more draws today for Team Guju. The winner go right to the Olympics in Italy this coming winter. Go get them, boys. A couple of random sports notes. So American Thanksgiving is a couple of days from now. It was on this date, 1976, that Pat Summerall and John Madden broadcasted the game together for the first time. They broadcasted NFL football for 22 years. And one of the most popular broadcasting duos in American sports history, I would suggest. And for people around my vintage who were boxing fans back in the day, this is a pretty famous fight. 1980, Sugar Ray Leonard regains his WBC welterweight boxing crown when Roberto Duran quit in the 8th round. The old no mas fight. The no mas. And of course, Leonard went on then to famously win yet another title, knocking out Tommy Hearns in the 12th round in a pretty famous fight as well. Okay. Speed cameras, I'm a fan. So it's an interesting way that the news story is written. And we know in other provinces in the country, they've made it very difficult for municipalities to get in on the speed camera business, like in Ontario. Doug Ford, the Premier, calls speed cameras a cash grab. It's a funny way to look at it. If it slows people down, and the documentation is pretty clear, speed cameras can be an effective deterrent against speeding, aggressive driving, what have you. So we've got the first few cameras that have been installed here. Veterans Memorial School Zones on Waterford Bridge Road, Larkall Academy. All right, as of the 25th of September, 210 tickets, only 210 tickets had been served by registered mail. Now, there might be some hiccups given the flow through Canada Post. We could talk Canada Post as well, but let's get that 10-camera program up and running. You have to believe that it will be somewhat effective. And yes, I hear you, not everyone's going to pay the fine, which is why we asked the Public Safety and Justice Minister, Helen Conway-Ottenheimer, yesterday about the concept of community service to work off your fines. So the speed camera numbers are in. I was looking for them. And there they are. This story, man, made the national news too. So there's an investigation or a review underway about the actions of an RCMP officer. The story is that this RCMP officer arrested an intellectually delayed woman. She's on the autism spectrum. She has a seizure disorder. What makes this even more and more curious is that it took place at the Pottle Centre. It's a place for people to go with any mental health concern or challenges, and it's a meeting ground. It's a social setting. And so this young lady, she was at the computer trying to sign up for some sort of online game, and with the centre about to close, they powered down the computer. She became irritated to some level. I have no earthly idea. So this RCMP officer, off duty, out of his jurisdiction, arrests her. And the story goes that dragged her out of the Pottle Centre until the RNC showed up. No charges were laid. So the investigation continues, but the fact of the matter is, in that setting, knowing full well that this lady and her caregiver describing exactly what might be troubling this young lady ends up dragged out of the Pottle Centre and detained, and the RNC eventually show up. So they were trying to call for the RNC to respond. They have a mental health crisis unit. So there's a mental health professional or clinician, a plainclothes officer who's trained in crisis intervention. So as opposed to allowing that, which is a much more practical and pragmatic approach to be taken, this off-duty RCMP officer went in and arrested this one for mischief because she wasn't ready to leave the Pottle Centre upon closing, I think at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, what a story that is. Continue to get, I was going to say bombarded, but getting still tons of feedback about comments I made about contraband tobacco. Look, I get it. People continually send me pictures of the pack of cigarettes and the price tag associated with it, and I know people are saving a lot of money by buying contraband tobacco. And being told to not preach about how I spend my money. I don't know how many times I've said, look, it's your money, you do as you see fit. But it is worthwhile pointing out that buying the contraband tobacco, so says law enforcement, is a direct benefit, financially speaking, to organized crime. You see it as much as I do. The bus where the photo ops take place and you see the drugs that are laid out on the table and the weapons and the cash and, yes, the contraband tobacco. So again, if that's what you feel like doing, you do as you see fit. And keep sending me emails telling me I'm on the wrong side of. One fellow says I'm on the wrong side of history by suggesting that contraband tobacco supporting organized crime is some sort of problem. Well, it is. You want to talk about it? We can do it. All right, and in the world of drugs, so now in the courts, and the defense is looking for more information or evidence, it's the first criminal case in this province where an alleged drug dealer is being held criminally responsible for an overdose death. It's a very interesting and potentially precedent-setting court case. So if people are wanting and willing to buy illicit drugs and maybe in the death spiral of addiction, this case is fascinating for a couple of reasons. So the poor young fellow who was only 14 years old, and the person who's being charged is only 19 years old, charged with manslaughter, criminal negligence causing death, drug possession and trafficking. So the 14-year-old kid thought he was buying Xanax, but unfortunately wasn't. It is disguised and is a deadly mix of synthetic opioids. So the investigation led to a home here in the city of St. John's where the police seized cocaine, ketamine, and another phenazalum, which I don't know what that is. So the most interesting part is if you know what you're buying and you've made a conscientious decision, even though conscientious decisions and addiction to drugs don't necessarily belong in the same sentence, but if you think you're buying Xanax, but you're buying something else that eventually kills you, it's a worthwhile examination for the criminal justice system. So I'll be intrigued to find out where this eventually leads. And if drug dealers are willing to misrepresent the drug they're selling, then maybe, just maybe, this is the appropriate level of action to be taken. Your thoughts would be most welcome here today. All right, let's get to it. This is a strange story, but important. So Health Canada is now set the table for retailers to be able to sell us cloned animal meat. All right. It's likely into the future going to enter the Canadian food supply, and Health Canada is going to allow it, and it's the offspring of cloned animals, whether they be cows or pigs or whatever the case may be. All right. I think there's plenty of research that speaks to the food safety perspective, but the problem here, as pointed out by many, is that they're not going to mandate appropriate labeling. Look, if people can buy cloned meat and it's at less cost than not cloned meat, then maybe people make that decision and maybe take it upon themselves to see what kind of food safety assessment has been made of these cloned meat products. But let's make it mandatory for the label to reflect exactly what you're buying. It's already a massive problem in grocery retail right across the country, whether it be with where the product is from, product of Canada or made in Canada versus it's not, but yet people are taking advantage of our domestic want to buy more and more local product. But the clone meat conversation is just weird. So they've taken the designation of novel foods. And so that's all about pre-market safety, assessment, and yes, mandatory labeling. Health Canada goes on to say that they will never be directly involved in cloning practices now or ever. But if we're allowing that into the chain, let's just do the very fundamental and the very easy to enforce, label it appropriately. On that front, when you talk about, and I think that's a fascinating conversation, but the same thing when it comes to enforcement by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. We've had this big formal signing of interprovincial trade restrictions to be dropped on a variety of fronts, but it does not include foods including meat. Why? Because for some unknown reason, we have different standards held by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency from province to province. None of that makes any sense to me. If I live here, but I want to move there, wouldn't you expect inside the same country to have the same approach taken to safety at the abattoir, packaging, labeling? But we don't, and it's just for some bizarre reason that that's the case. But cloned meat coming to a grocery retailer by you somewhere in the very near future. Strange. All right. Let's talk a little healthcare. So I hear from some, and Michael, you can feel free to send me an email on this one. It's about privatization. You know, it's happening, and it's been happening in this country for a long time, whether it be for dentistry or physiotherapy or some medication services, some counselling in the world of mental health. But now it's creeping a little further down the road, including surgery. So there's a new report out there, and take it for what it's worth, but it looks at mortality rates and wait times regarding the ever-growing presence of what they call private healthcare. Now, in some provinces like Quebec, you're getting what they think or they call private healthcare, but it's being publicly funded. Same thing in the province of Ontario. So how does it work? How can it work? Some of the report is pretty interesting insofar as wait times in the public sector goes. So the thought is, if you take people who can afford private health care to get out of the public line and to get into their own private line, pay for their surgery or diagnostic, whatever the case may be, that it's going to make things better or easier in the public sector. Hasn't borne out to be the case. So mortality rates are one thing, but if you take staff out of the public sector and put them in a private setting, then that's not going to do much to reduce wait times, because why? We hear about surgeries being postponed, and it's not because we don't have surgeons, it's because we don't have support staff necessarily. So if you take any of those cogs out of the wheel of public and put them in private, I don't think things improve necessarily. And this report is pretty clear in how it looks at these staffing issues, which is the key driving force behind wait times. Then they go on to talk about what is critically important, and this is just one of the comments coming from one of the researchers. It's Lane Breton, the Canada Research Chair in Clinical Governance of Primary Care Services, also a professor at the University of Sherbrooke. One of the determinants of health is the health system, but that only accounts for 20% of mortality. So 80% of mortality is explained by factors outside the healthcare system. We may focus on the 20% of healthcare system to explain it, but the major drivers are much broader, and what are they? They're the social determinants of health, most notably education and housing. It's a fascinating breakdown of the reality here. And they also go on to talk about, in a private setting, doctors or other healthcare professionals may be able to deny treatment for you, as opposed to in the public sector where they're obliged to treat. We already know some doctors will turn away smokers or those who are morbidly obese or whatever the case may be. But again, this goes on to say, we can examine mortality rates, but it only contributes about 20% of the conversation. Education and housing. And just another reminder, the University Hospital in Toronto, where they looked at 1,000 admissions, 500 were those were housed, 500 were chronically homeless. The results, the 500 were homeless with their chronic underlying conditions. They stayed twice as long in hospital, consequently cost us twice as much. So you wonder, when you add that up to dollars and cents, to try to address the social determinants of health, you improve not only people's individual outcomes, but you reduce costs and reliance on the healthcare system. So that's a pretty interesting example. Now, private healthcare, if you can look at how some countries in Europe approach it. You can indeed be working in the private sector and have your accreditation approved by whatever health authority, but you're also obliged to spend time also working in the public sector. So it hasn't been a full abandonment of the public sector. They've created a hybrid model, which is absolutely worth examining, as opposed to it's either one or the other in some of the provinces that approach privatization or the creep of privatization in the world of healthcare. You want to talk about it? I do. Okay. I'll say, the most recent Human Resources Healthcare report delivered by Deloitte and Touche. Now, we know there's been some contribution of artificial intelligence in it, and of course, regardless of what the contents of the 560 pages say, people will look at credibility associated with the use of AI. And you might get tired of hearing about it, but we have to talk about it. So there's been a new research paper co-authored by Google researchers in conjunction with Duke University and some other fact-checking organizations. They're looking at the creep of AI-generated images. At the beginning of last year, it made up what they refer to as a minute proportion of content manipulations overall until early this year. With the new release of AI generation tools by major players in the tech sector like Microsoft, Google itself, OpenAI, now is nearly as common as text and general content manipulation is represented by AI-generated misinformation. It's going to be a massive problem. It just absolutely is. And the whole concept of garbage in equals garbage out, the AI-generated generation tools are just scouring the internet to try to come up with rapid-fire answers to your inputs. And more, this is going to result in just absolutely bogus information, whether it be deep fakes of celebrities or otherwise. It's becoming tricky. To make matters worse, we haven't even obliged these tech giants to watermark what we know to be AI. So they have invisible to the naked eye watermarks saying that this is an AI-generated image. Let's make them absolutely put a label there that is unmistakable, and you will see it every single time, to give us a fighting chance to be able to discern what you're looking at, whether it be real or fake. But here's where it gets a huge additional problem. According to the Wall Street Journal, AI-related investment accounts are contributed to half of GDP growth in the United States. So, as some of the big tech guys are saying, well, we can't reverse this. It would result in a recession. That will be the driving force here. Not what's good, not what's right, not what's most appropriate. It's the risk to investors. Half of American GDP growth associated directly with AI-related investment. So, do you think there's any going back? Of course not. And if that's the case, let's make sure that they do what is right by us, is label things that are AI generated to be exactly known as that. But imagine, half of GDP growth in the United States is based on these types of investments. You think there's going to be any appetite at the policy level, the government level, to do anything about it? Probably not. Given the fact that they trumpet the successes and the stock market highs as the be-all and end-all, the measure of an economy, when, of course, you can't eat the stock market. Not everyone has direct investment in. Many of your pension funds may indeed be directly and indirectly related to the stock market. But if AI is driving the surge, then what do you think is going to happen? All right. A couple of very quick ones. So today begins 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. There was a purple ribbon flag-raising event at Confederation Building this morning at 11. It's a difficult conversation, but like most everything else, the most difficult conversations are the most important to have. We have a problem. We absolutely do. On average, one woman or a girl is killed every 48 hours in this country due to gender-based violence. We see the court dockets, and even the court dockets don't reflect the enormous problem that it is. Because not everybody comes forward to file a formal complaint with law enforcement, and for a variety of reasons. Devastation to families, devastation to communities, long-term impact is obvious. So the conversations we need to have, starting in school and in our social circles and in public, to not be afraid to talk about it, and we've got to make sure, obviously, the vast majority of these crimes are perpetrated against women, girls, or gender-diverse people. Men can absolutely be on the receiving end. It's true. But these honest conversations amongst us boys, lads, let's just talk about it. Because the more we're honest about it, we can hopefully reduce the prevalence of gender-based violence. You know as well as I do, it is a massive and growing problem in this province and around the country. Forget the rest of the world. Well, you know what I mean by that. But today begins 16 days of activism against. So let's have these conversations in our social circles, because we obviously have to talk about it in some form or fashion. The devastation is real, and it's long-term. A couple other quick ones. So, all right. I guess in an effort to placate frustrated Albertans, we're told that the broad strokes of a memorandum of understanding between the federal government and Alberta, giving them special federal environmental exemptions and relaxing some laws to allow for a pipeline to be built from Alberta to the north coast of British Columbia. Obviously, British Columbians, or I don't know, I can't speak for them, the Premier, David Eby, frustrated. How he's not included in this conversation is beyond me. It goes on to talk about the fact that, so they're kind of picking and choosing what they think will be most easy to sell to Albertans. So they're going to have to apparently embrace a stricter industrial carbon pricing regime, a multi-billion-dollar investment into carbon capture at the Pathways Alliance. You know, they talk about things like greenwashing. Carbon capture might be exactly that. But here we go with this new oil pipeline, maybe. There will be some language associated with reducing federal greenhouse gas regulations, consultation with Indigenous groups, consultation and authority given to British Columbia. But here we go. The main question will be, will anyone in the private sector step forward, even with this removal of some federal environmental laws or ease of some of these laws, fast-tracking on the consultation front? Is there any appetite in the private sector to build this pipeline? And if the province of BC did not have to be involved upfront and personal regarding the creation of this memorandum of understanding, it begs the question about provincial jurisdiction and provincial authority. If this happens and gets shoved down BC's throat, what keeps every other province in the country to doing something similar, like us? With the free flow of electricity from the Churchill River through Quebec. If you can make a pipeline happen without the authority granted to BC, traditionally speaking, then where does it stop? You know, is there ever going to be an east-west energy corridor? Well, the conversation just gets ramped up if there's going to be all of a sudden very little consultation with the province of BC to build a pipeline through their province to the north coast, where you're currently not allowed to empty into the tankers. So what does that mean for our conversation regarding Quebec? Or is Quebec sacrosanct? And we can't have the same conversation with how we flow our power, similar to how they're flowing their power. What do you think? I think that's it's not a different conversation whatsoever, as far as I can tell. But if you want to take that on, I think that's probably an interesting case study. Oh, and it's worth noting that Premier Smith, Danielle Smith in Alberta, has a leadership review coming up very shortly. They find themselves in some hot water with recall legislation. They thought it wouldn't be used against the UCP. It looks like it is being used against the UCP, and other issues of notwithstanding clauses and all the rest. But a memorandum of understanding on a pipeline. Fascinating. We're on Twitter, not as fascinating. We're VOCM Open Line, follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That only works one way. You're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin on the top of the board. Line number one. Good morning, Charlie. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
Patty, you mentioned those chemicals in food, what was that again, PFAS or something?
Yeah, PFAS, PFAS, known as forever chemicals. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, has now greenlit the use of those in the pesticides on things like lettuce and broccoli and what have you. So just fair warning to people who go to the grocery store and those products come from the States in the future, PFAS might be sitting on top.
Yes, it reminded me of a story recently. A woman from the States lived in Britain, or still living there for a number of years, and she was talking about the differences. And one of the differences was regarding food. She said that food in Britain spoiled quicker. It was tastier, but it spoiled quicker. And she said the main reason was in Britain they would have less preservatives and chemicals in the food. So I thought that related a little bit to what you said there, right?
It does. I mean, the way food has been dealt with, chemically speaking, by the agricultural sector has been really a problem for a long, long time. I mean, just picture it. Go to the grocery store, buy a bag of carrots that are all uniform, look exactly the same and are bright orange. First, the ones next to it are from a farm out in the Ghouls, and they're not as orange, and they look still even a little bit dirty. You go with the ones that are uniform and real bright orange. Sure, my God, it'll take you half hour to wash the orange off your hands.
Anyway, I wanted to make a remark on Carney saying, "Who cares?" I was actually glad that he came out with that. I'll tell you the reason. You remember the tech industries from the States met and they were going to tax these in Canada, and Trump raised hell, or the states did, saying this was unfair and it would affect the trade talks and so on. And they backed away from that. And then they came out with the ad, the Ontario ad, and Carney ended up apologizing for that when they used that. We're going to stop talks. And then they add the airplane one. If you don't buy airplanes, it struck me that Carney has handled it well in knowing what that guy is like and how you have to cater to him. But it reaches a point, I think, where you say, look, you can't keep doing this. If you're going to use all these other issues to cancel trade things, so who cares to me was a light way of saying we've had enough. But anyway, that's just my comment on that.
Well, like most things, the entire press conference was not shown in these clips. We simply saw the question and the who cares reference, and he says it's just a detail. If you look at the entirety of the press conference, there was also two questions eerily similar to where he gave extensive answers, and then I guess he just got frustrated and said, who cares? Now, for the Prime Minister, for me, it's a little bit too cavalier a way to put it, given the importance of this trade relation, even though we have an unreliable partner south of the border. So you can make the same point without using those words to, that effect and that impact. Look, I've got people sending me, those two words are going to be his undoing. No, they're not. I mean, we've tried to negotiate. We were told it's about national security, and it's about fentanyl, and then it's about an ad, and then it's about softwood lumber, and then look, it's just about whether or not people want to get on bended knee and appease one person and one person only. We had a trade deal that he signed, called it the best one ever. He tore it up and threw it in our face as a result of calling it national security. So how are we supposed to approach this? No deal is better than an absolutely terrible deal. And whether or not people like Prime Minister Carney, I'll leave it up to them. The whole thought, from at least for me, was as soon as this bubbled up, was the incredible importance of trying to find other partners. You can't replace 75% of trade with the United States, with the rest of the world, but you can replace some of it. You can reduce reliance, and that seems to be where we are.
Yeah, I feel that he had enough, and I'm glad he responded that way, because you can be bullied forever. But I don't think it's going to change things anyway with him. I don't think it matters in the long term anyway.
I don't know.
I was thinking about one person's decision can affect the whole world. The latest one would be Putin and his attack on Ukraine and all the implications of that. I noticed he keeps bombing cities and that. If that's not terrorism, I don't know what it is. It's state terrorism. Ukraine has to go and bomb facilities, energy facilities and so on. If they ever touched a Russian city and killed that many people, it would be, you can imagine the response. Anyway, it's an asymmetrical thing that's going on there, and it's terrorism at its worst. But the reason I brought up a one man, the Oppenheimer thing, when they developed the atom bomb back in the early 40s, the main concern was the Nazis were going to get the bomb before the States did. So they went all out. Oppenheimer was the leader of the group there. And when they exploded it, they were all ecstatic, the scientists, because the thing had worked. They didn't know at the time if it would work, and they didn't know if it would catch the atmosphere on fire. It was a big doubt before that first test. Anyway, after the initial hysteria was over about how great it worked, they realized that this would be threatening to mankind. So anyway, at some point, he goes to Truman was president at the time, and he was going to argue for international control, some way to, because he knew once the genie was out, and if there was no international control, one would compete against the other. And the Soviets at this time were developing their own. They also had spies in the U.S. camp. Anyway, it was a matter of time. All scientists knew before the Russians got theirs. So he goes in, and Truman says at one point, "When do you think the Russians will have that same weapon?" And Oppenheimer knew they would, but he said, "I don't really know." And you know what Truman said? He said, "Never." The decisions then were made to go ahead unilaterally and develop American bombs and so on, so they would be one up on the rest of the world, especially Russia. And of course, that was so stupid and backward in thinking, because the scientists all knew that it was just a matter of time. But that one decision by Truman, where they might have at least put a cap on things back at that time with some Russian, I'm not sure if they would have got Russian agreement for it, but they would have at least tried. And we now live in a nuclear world where things can be blown up just like that, you know. But I thought it's remarkable how one person can change the world and not just for then, but for years to come,
Absolutely. So after the first successful test, of course, Truman brought forward what they call the Potsdam Declaration, looking for the unconditional surrender of the Japanese government. But then, of course, can't remember the exact date, but somewhere in August 1945, it was loaded into the Enola Gay and dropped on Hiroshima, and there's no going back. It's fascinating to look at Truman's role here. The stories that I've read are that he never explicitly ordered the dropping of the atomic bomb, but allowed for it to happen. Then he did give an order that stopped them from being used again into the future, but it became worthless at that point because, as you rightfully point out, after the bomb exploded over Hiroshima and then consequently Nagasaki, the nuclear arms race was on, and it has never been off. We've talked about some of the Budapest Accords and all those things where we're trying to roll things back, and some countries, including Ukraine, have denuclearized themselves insofar as weaponry goes, and there doesn't seem to be any stop, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of real deterrent given what we see in this world. And you mentioned the war in Ukraine. I mean, read the stories about the proposed 28-point plan of peace that seemingly was written by the Russians and released, I guess, leaked into the media in the United States. So anyway, I don't go too far down that Russia hole, but
that was strictly a surrender document. It's the only way he feels he can get the Nobel Prize to go along with the Russians. But
capitulation.
Anyway, just back to the bomb for a second. After the atom bomb was developed, Teller came along. Edward Teller, and said, we can do an hydrogen bomb. And many of the scientists were against that because if one atom bomb, which was 15,000 tons of TNT, a nuclear bomb, the figure I read, and I couldn't believe it, was 1 million tons. And they knew it was too big to be used, even on a city. So they knew that this would be a total disaster if the sides, either side or both sides, got that, unless, of course, they decided that it would be suicide for either side to use it. But anyway, Oppenheimer came out and said, look, we can't build this. And that was another thing that Truman did. They eventually gave the go-ahead to build the hydrogen bomb. Anyway, just interesting stuff.
I appreciate the time, Charlie. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the Liberal member for Harbour Grace Portagrave. That's Pam Parsons. Good morning, Pam. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and good morning to all your listeners, of course. I just wanted to call in today. As you know, it's Purple Ribbon Campaign today. It's something that government hosts each and every year, and it's ultimately led by the stakeholders of family and loved ones of victims, as we know. And I just wanted to call in. I'll certainly be attending. I've had the privilege of hosting that along with those stakeholders while I was Minister of Women and Gender Equality. But again, I mean, it's a campaign today, and there are so many days of action, of calls to action. But Patty, as you and I have had many conversations over the years about gender-based violence, how it is real, how it is a crisis here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have staggering, huge stats. Stats alone in Labrador with Indigenous women are higher than the national average with regards to violence against Indigenous women and girls, and of course even death. So I want to talk about that and the important initiatives. While I was minister, of course, I signed on to a national bilateral agreement with the federal government, of course, which saw $13.6 million come to Newfoundland and Labrador, and that money went to stakeholders, equality-seeking organizations, violence prevention groups, Indigenous groups, and in particular Quadrangle, another very important stakeholder, of course, that are standing shoulder to shoulder to prevent gender-based violence, of course, in particular with the members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. But a lot of work has been done, so I'm certainly willing to work with my colleague, the new minister, to help any way I can, because as we know, Patty, gender-based violence knows no boundaries. It's certainly not a partisan issue, and it doesn't discriminate. And we know that it certainly is a real problem here in our province, across the country, even across the entire world. What we see what some women have to endure in other countries. We are blessed here to live in a great province celebrates equality, but there's always more work to be done.
What does that even mean? So I think that's part of the conversation that is missing or very vague, is the work to be done. So specifically, what actions need to happen? Bringing in money and awareness campaigns is one thing, but what are practical issues we should be talking about and working on?
Well, for example, one piece of legislation, there were many, but one in particular that is making a difference, and even in my conversation with law enforcement professionals, the Clare's Law. And what that does, we brought that in government just shortly after, I think, 2017. And what that does, that gives a woman or anybody who feels that they're in a relationship with a new partner who may have a history of violence, whether it be domestic violence, they can go. There is a proper process, of course. They can go to the RNC and even consult with the RCMP. It is RNC-led, and to see what that partner's background is, to see if they have a history or if they have a record of gender-based violence against previous partners. And that uptake apparently is significant based on the stats that have come and my conversations that have come with our colleagues in the RNC as well as the RCMP. Something that I did as well as minister, I struck a ministerial cabinet on a task force cabinet, ministerial committee cabinet, and the calling for a task force against gender-based violence. So what that did, that saw a number of ministers with relative portfolios, such as CSSD at the time, Children, Senior, Social Development, Health, Community Service was involved, Justice, Public Safety, myself as Women and Gender Equality, and we came together with senior officials as well as stakeholders. We had stakeholders come in and present to this committee on what is needed. One in particular is a violence prevention group came in to talk about the importance of electronic monitoring. That was something that was in place, but it changed the degree in which it is issued and which it is used on people who may be released on bail. And we heard the significance of how community is calling for this and how it does in fact make a difference. If someone in other jurisdictions, for example, if they use examples and statistics, is wearing that device, and they come close to the person who is in danger, or their partner, their former partner, the stats actually prove that it does make a difference. So that's ways that we can tighten up legislation and even, access to justice in this regard. So, and also something that was struck that I was happy to be part of and to lead is the Indigenous-led Reconciliation Council with Indigenous women across Newfoundland and Labrador. It was a call that they pushed in their report following the national inquiry of missing murdered Indigenous women and girls, something they asked for. It is Indigenous-led. A lot of great work has been done, and I'm really hoping that the new minister will continue that work, to meet with these Indigenous women across Newfoundland and Labrador, because they know what is needed, and these initiatives need to be Indigenous-led. So a lot of great work to be done, and again, this work has to continue. And I offer my full support to my colleague in any way I can support or help her be part of this.
I appreciate you making time for the show, Pam. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. It's, again, repeating myself, but it's worth repeating. It is a tricky conversation. And, I got a couple of emails based on what I said off the top of the show, and I don't know how people hear or dissect some of the things that you hear on the radio, but, it basically said, why do people, and I guess including me is the assertion here, is painting males as toxic and stuff? I didn't say anything like that. When it comes to gender-based violence, if a woman or a girl is on the receiving end, by definition, that man is a problem, right? And the root causes as to what leads to that sort of violence in the home or violence in the relationship, there's not a one-size-fits-all there. So this is not about a broad stroke of across-the-board toxic masculinity. I never even said that. I don't know how somebody heard it and that did that type of translation in their own mind, but any of those types of pushbacks really do feel like dismissing in full or in part the issue and the prevalence of gender-based violence. We all know it's real. We all see the numbers. We know it's growing. And the numbers only reflect the number of people that have actually come forward and filed a formal complaint, which is probably minuscule compared to the issue itself. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Debbie. You're on the air.
Hello, Patty.
Hello.
Hi. This is a change of subject now, but I don't know if you can help me. I'm 70 years old, I have bone cancer. I have lung cancer. I have a lot of issues, right? And I did 30 years. I had a foster home with mentally challenged adults. Plus, I did respite, But anyway, I went to Edmonton to help my daughter raise the kids, right? She had working. And that was all right. I came back here to Newfoundland to live, retire. I had enough for my first month's rent, my last month's rent, my damage deposit, and money for the month. So that was all right. I was staying at my sister's until I found a place, but that didn't work out. So I left there, and the only thing was a shelter. So I didn't know what they were like, so I went there. And Patty, I'm there since the end of July. I'm after having pneumonia twice. The shelter I'm in now has stairs. Like, I just got out of the hospital. I was in for 2 weeks with pneumonia. So my breathing's not the best. I have COPD and lung cancer. And the stairs. And, they can't find me another place or they won't. I get in touch with the Newfoundland Labrador shelter line, Newfoundland Labrador housing. I get old age pension, CPP, and spousal support. All I need is an apartment. I can't go on like this much longer.
Okay, just a couple of questions, and I certainly have no intention of being mean at all. No. Did you have a plan for housing when you were coming back to the province?
Not when I was coming back, no. No, I didn't think it'd be this hard, right?
And so you can afford a certain amount of money for an apartment, so what are you comfortable in paying for rent? Just so if in an effort for me to try to help.
What am I paying for rent now?
No, what would you be able to pay for it? You say you're looking for an apartment.
I could pay $1,000 for sure.
Okay.
I could pay $1,000, right?
Do you need anything special in the rental unit, or you just need something on a ground floor because of your health concerns?
I need my breathing. I need something, well, if I could have it in the bathtub, getting out of the bath, and, something on my bed to get up out the bed, just stuff to make it easier, right?
Right, and some of those things can be put in after the fact if we can find an appropriate apartment for just one person. And you only need it for just yourself, right, Debbie?
Yes.
Vacancy is extremely low. Do you need to be in the city? Can you be in one of the communities close by, or what's your hope?
I just go St. John's, Mount Pearl.
St. John's, Mount Pearl. Okay, off the top of my head, I can't give you an option, but we know some people in the landlord business and property management business. So at $1,000 a month in St. John's or Mount Pearl, something appropriate for a lady at 70 years of age with some of the health concerns that she's brought forward. Let's see if we can figure out something for you, Debbie. Before I'll see what I could do with the shelter. Describe your experience at the shelter, whether it be with cleanliness or access to appropriate food or violence or whatever the case may be. What's your experience been like in the shelter?
It's not fit for anybody. Are you there?
Yeah, you want to give us a couple of examples that make it not fit for anybody? I'm just curious, just so we can paint the picture.
My wallet was stolen. My IDs were all stolen. My cell phone was stolen. The only place that I found that was good was the gathering place. The only thing wrong with the gathering place is that you have to be outside for 12 hours. They have a TV room and that, but the gathering place is for everybody. So, you don't usually get a seat to sit on, right? Because there's so many people. The one I'm in now is terrible. You have to be gone from 10 to 3, and they don't give you any options, right? You just have to be gone. Rain, snow, no matter what, high winds, you have to be out. And that's the one on the Merchant, right? That's the one I'm in now. I don't know why they picked this place for me, right? There's a lot of young people here that can, they're sturdy, they can handle that, right? But I'm out here now sitting at the picnic table because you have to be out by 10 talking to you, freezing to death.
Debbie, no promises, but we'll see what we can't do to try to help you. How's that?
Okay, well, everyone's saying that, you know,
But,
they can't promise, and I'm still here.
Yeah, but you're talking to people that work in that as for a living, as professionals working for the government. That's not who I am. I just do this job. So I can never make promises, and I don't make them if I can't keep them. So it's one thing for someone to work for the government to say they can't make any promises. For me, I'll put in an effort on your behalf, but I'm just trying to make you aware of the fact that just because you call doesn't mean I'm going to be able to snap my fingers and find something, but I will try.
Well, if I thought that, I would have called you 2 or 3 months ago, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, leave it with me, Debbie.
Okay.
I'll see what we can
Is that
do.
my number?
Yeah, we have your number. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
And just the way we handle the shelter business here is not the way it's handled elsewhere. And it's time, just remember, it was just last year, I think it was last year, that for the first time ever, we actually came out with some operational expectations in the emergency shelter business. So codes of conduct and some of the rules of oversight and monitoring and inspections. I mean, it's just not the way it should be. In addition to that, we pay millions of dollars to private landlords to operate emergency shelters. And is it working? Of course it's not. So anyway, you want to talk about it? Let's go. Before we get to the news, let's go to line number 4. Colleen, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I called you last week about my grandson's car being stolen. Thanks to God and the good people of social media and your radio station, we did find it 2 days later. It had been stolen and somebody's been joyriding in it, and these people are drug dealers, and it was very traumatizing for my grandson. But social media, VOCM, is the way to go when you need help. And we got so many tips of where the car was, who the person was, and the police still have the car. We're waiting. The police had to detail the car and do through drugs and stuff, I guess. But they stole, he's 18 years old, he just started college. They stole all his brand new hockey equipment, his Ray-Bans. But he's okay with my main concern, and we got his car so he can do his career that he is doing. I'd like to thank you and your listeners and social media for getting right on it for us.
We're happy to help whenever we can. So this was the 2015 white Civic? Is that the call I remember? Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you at least got the car back. It's unfortunate that the thieves went on to steal the hockey equipment. They probably don't even need it. They're probably just going to try to sell it for a bit of pocket change. We know people, so if he's 18 years of age, he's playing just rec hockey with his buddies, or what's he playing?
Well, he just started college, and he joined the junior team with his schoolmates, I guess.
Okay.
So he went out, and he saved up, he bought all new hockey equipment. And, of course, when we opened the trunk, or the police opened the trunk, they said everything was gone, equipment. So, what do you do, right? He's trying so hard, and as long as he's got his car for school and he gets his career, and he's a good kid, very, very good kid.
Well, I'm glad to hear he's a good kid. I'm glad he's got the car back. And we know people that are in the hockey equipment business. They, generally speaking, try to provide that type of support to much younger children. But I'll drop a quick text off and see what kind of hockey gear is kicking around for an 18-year-old. Is he a big guy or little guy?
Yeah, he's tall. He's thin. He's probably 5'8", 5'9".
Okay.
But he's small. But that would be so wonderful and so helpful, because every penny is going into his schooling now, and we want to keep that going and keep them into sports and keep them out of trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah, generally speaking, the hockey equipment banks that I'm aware of and that we've helped in the past, they usually have equipment for smaller, younger kids, but you never know.
Right.
It only costs me one quick text message to see if there's any teenager or 18-year-old 5'8" type of hockey equipment around, and I'm happy to send that text. That's nothing to me, and we'll see what we can do. I guarantee I can get some of the equipment, though. No problem.
God, thank you so much, and thank you to your listeners and social media. They were so good to us.
I'm glad it worked out. Thank you, Colleen, for the update.
And thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.
There we go. Card is returned. Hopefully, when the police are processing it for evidence, they can maybe find some evidence to link it to whoever stole it. Let's get a break in. When we come back, plenty of show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the operations lead for the student design group at Memorial University. That's Shakib Miri. Shakib, you're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How you doing?
Not too bad, boy.
Give us an idea what's happening with the 4th annual Student Design Showcase.
Sure. So effectively, this event that happens annually is an avenue for our engineering students to display their skills and their projects and the things that they're designing and competing with on an international level. Applying their technical knowledge from classes to trying to solve practical problems. Some of which could have industry applications. Some of which are just kind of for the fun and for the skill building. So yeah, tonight that event's happening. The kind of main goal, besides the demonstration of all those skills, is to try and wrangle some funding to keep these projects alive and have the ability to go to their competitions and compete.
What kind of pitches are we going to see tonight? What kind of products or innovations?
Okay, so quite a diverse range, I'd say. There are a few, more marine-based teams that have autonomous surface or underwater vehicles. We have a lot of aerospace folks, like a Mars rover, a high-power rocket, some UAVs, both fixed-wing and quadcopter. There's an autonomous race cart and an off-road single-seat vehicle, kind of like a Can-Am, but just single-seat. That's about it. Quite the spread.
Sounds like quite the spread. So are these basically at the prototype stage or more advanced?
It depends. Some teams are a bit new, so they might have just completed their conceptual phase or the first prototype. Other teams are kind of working on a second or a third prototype, and there is a bit more, completeness to it. But in general, most teams are gearing up for competition mid to late 2026. So about this time next year, they'll have all their finished work on display.
Very cool. I mean, we get dragged into the infrastructure deficit at Memorial University and trying to save $20 million, and we don't talk enough about the good co-op programs or the fact, even in the business school punches way above their weight on the national and international stage in these type of business competitions. Same thing when it comes to innovation and tech. I mean, we're hosting an international competition, I believe it's next year, so we've done very well here. So paint the picture of just how advanced MUN is on these international and national stages.
Sure. Well, I can tell you for sure that Memorial's become quite the top pick for, Tesla, for example, for getting co-ops, and it's been very common for them to say that MUN students are some of the best. For example, this past year, Paradigm Engineering with their autonomous go-kart won second place internationally at the competition, and Eastern Edge, a remote-controlled and I think possibly also autonomous underwater vehicle, got third place internationally at the Mate ROV competition. And a lot of these students who are on these teams go and get very good co-ops at local or at international companies, and their skills are very well noticed.
What kind of tutelage or mentorship do they get insofar as the pitch? Because it's one thing to have identified an issue or a problem, propose an innovative solution, but that these initial rounds of funding also come with the need to be able to package up a concise but convincing pitch. What kind of tutelage do they get on that front?
Not a whole lot of in-depth, but there are certain folks in the department and like around the Student Design Hub that kind of have done this before. Certainly, there are a few co-founders and founders on the board of the directors for the Student Design Hub that have kind of weighed in on kind of drafting up frameworks and guidance for the students to formulate their pitch, and they also help review all of their submission documents to kind of help give them that little bit of learning for giving pitches and trying to generate some funding.
Is this open to the general public?
Yes, this is open to the general public. Technically, there is an RSVP, but I don't think anyone's going to be upset if folks just kind of come through the front doors of the Waylay Room and just have a look around.
Sounds good. Anything else you want to say this morning, Shakib, while we have you?
No, I guess I'll just kind of add to my last point. This is happening 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. tonight. So, if you're interested, if you know someone who is in a company or looking to hire people or give funding, or you are one, please drop down and see what our engineering students are up to.
Sounds great, man. Good luck with it this evening.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a good one.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. Shakib Miri is the operations lead for the Student Design Showcase, or the Student Design Group. I think that sometimes gets lost on the university conversation. We talk about tuition freeze going away and how tuition has doubled and the infrastructure deficit and some of those things which grab headlines, and we know why, but some of the issues regarding Memorial University where we really do very well. We still are very competitive in the tuition world, but the quality and the caliber of the co-op programs, the business school, the engineering school, the med school, some of the tech and innovative work that goes on there, it does get lost in the shuffle. Some of it might be boring to some, maybe some of it is niche to others, but it goes a long way with the reputation of the school. Even some of the work being done, and to contradict myself, even in the world of artificial intelligence, some of the advancements being done there, specifically in the world of healthcare, has been recognized internationally, and investment dollars are flowing as a result. So again, it's careful. I try to be careful in the AI conversation because, yes, for some it's going to be extremely helpful. It may indeed change the way we do business in the world of healthcare, the advancements that can be dealt with or achieved by artificial intelligence. But that is not the same conversation that I engage in with the amount of what they refer to as AI slop, what we see on social media or in other forms of media. That's where I think we've kind of lost the plot somewhat. And again, to think that genie is going to be easily put back in the bottle is impossible. If half of the American GDP growth is associated directly with artificial intelligence investments, then of course those with the money call the shots, and they've called them. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Denise, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. Patty, I'm calling about the old Purple Campaign Initiative. I spent 21 years as a volunteer with the Newfoundland Labrador Sexual Assault Crisis Center, and actually I've spoken to you in a few times while I was there. And I've since retired, if you call retiring from volunteering. However, it is an issue that's still very dear to me. And I heard you talking this morning about this term toxic male. Now, I've been away from this for a while, but I have heard that going around recently. And in my experience, it's just another title. There have always been men who have been very violent, but I found that they are in the minority. The majority of men out there are very supportive of women. They do not participate in violence against women. In actuality, they will fight against it. So I guess it's like the saying goes, there are toxic males, but not all males are toxic.
Of course not. And that's how one listener heard what I had said, even though I never used the word toxic first or last. So obviously, if someone is committing crimes against women or children or young girls, then that person can absolutely be labeled toxic. But my experience is most men don't fit into that envelope. And I'm glad that you're the one saying it this morning, Denise.
Absolutely. And in my 21 years of experience, I did find that repeatedly be true. There are some amazing men who have done some awesome work in, furthering anti-violence campaigns against women. And I've seen that firsthand. But again, they do walk amongst us, unfortunately. And these are the ones who commit the violence, and they're the ones that we hear about on the news and everything like that. Now, one of the things that I found in my time there was that violence in male was often a learned behavior. Not all the time. Sometimes there were deeper issues that I guess would take a psychiatrist to talk about. But there were many times, for example, that women would call, they were in situations of domestic violence, and they would be debating whether or not to leave. And they would say, well, my children, he never touches them. He's really a good father, but he was very violent to his partner. And it is a big decision for a woman to uproot her children, go to a shelter, take them away from everything they know, and, face this uncertainty. But I would say to them quite often, okay, he doesn't commit violence against your children, but your children is witnessing him commit violence against you. So they're normalizing. Your sons are learning that it's okay to treat women like that. Your daughters are learning it's okay to be treated like that. And so a lot of this behavior is learned, and fortunately sometimes can be unlearned. People who grew up in violent homes, and it's generational. It's gone back. And that's what I know. We did a study on that, and it was proven that almost 90% of the cases, now like I said, there are people with psychiatric issues, but in almost every case, that was the situation. So it is a behavior that can be unlearned. And we have had men who have come forward and said, I used to be this way, and I've changed, and, I've made amends, and what have you. The other thing about this campaign is someone mentioned about money, and there's not a lot goes, where does all the money go with these campaigns and programs? I know in the 21 years that I was there were some amazing initiatives and programs that was set up, many fortunately at the grassroots level, that directly impacted and helped victims of sexual violence, domestic violence, what have you. And I was very proud to be a part of those initiatives, and a lot of them still stand now. And that's where the money needs to keep going. Yes, so much needs to go for policy changes, because we still have a lot of that to work towards. But, the money still has to go to the grassroots level organizations so that they can do the work directly with victims and turn them into survivors and let them, thrive. Not just survive, but thrive. And so I just wanted to reiterate that the Purple Ribbon Campaign does do a lot of really good work in this province particularly.
And it's necessary, but that's also a crying shame that this type of campaign and 16 days of activism is required. But let's all just be honest with ourselves. It's happening. We know it's happening, and there's just so much needs to be done. And I'm glad you talked about, there's no forgiveness offered for, say in this case, the man beating the wife but not beating the children. You're 100% right. When we normalize this type of behavior, the possibility or the potential for those children to see it as normal behavior, to bring that thought process into their teen years, into their adult years, is very real. I mean, everything starts at home. Some of these things are 100% learned behavior. So that's why I think, people are loath to talk about complex emotional issues in school, but that's what we're talking about, the developing brain. That's how you learn how to socialize. You learn what's acceptable. You learn about respect, self-respect, and otherwise. So to not talk about it as children are growing, and we teach them as to what exactly is acceptable and the reasons why other things are unacceptable, then we're just missing the captive audience opportunity.
Absolutely. And, it needs to be a broader program for children. Talking about it in a 10-minute session in grade 4 is just not going to do the trick. You know what I mean? Because these kids are living it every day of their lives. They're witnessing it every day of their lives. It's being normalized every day of their lives. And this is why it's still such a big issue all these years later. And this is why it's going to continue to be an issue until programs like the Purple Ribbon Campaign starts, taking it to kids and going into schools and talking about domestic violence, sexual violence, how they see other men, fathers, uncles, grandfathers, family friends talking about women. They sexualize women. They commit violent acts against women. And to let them know that that's wrong. And to teach them that behavior is unacceptable. And what the consequences of that behavior could be, which means jail time, loss of a relationship, and, we can go on and on. So, when you talk about toxic males, and this is a new term, I envision younger men. So, I wonder what environment these younger men grew up in. Because, like I said, most men are not toxic. Most men are not violent. We don't, and actually, like I said, the reverse, they're very supportive. But these are the ones that we need to get to, and we need to get to them while they're still young. This is where it starts, and this is where it has to continue. Because we could talk forever about girls and their behavior and how they dress. We've done that in the past.
Oh, sure.
It doesn't work, and but this is where the education has to start with young males.
And some of it can feel really innocuous. And I'm not going to I'm not offering this as some sort of whiny complaint based on what I hear and what people shoot at me. But I mean, even just people send me emails sometimes, and they feminize me in a way to try to knock me off my pedestal, or whatever the right phrase is. Call me Patricia, and Trudeau is Justine, or calling me Rachel. And I think that's some sort of reference to Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. I'm not really sure. But they might not realize, well, it doesn't hurt me because my skin is pretty thick these days, but it's just a glaring example of the mindset. If you think that that's some sort of insult, then you've got a weird way going about your adult business.
Yeah, and to recognize the fact that they're using feminine names as a form of an insult.
Absolutely. That's what they're doing when they send me those notes, insulting me, which is fine.
One male putting you down and denigrating what you're saying, and they're doing that by using the feminine, which, of course, anyone else listening, particularly younger males and who are already have this mindset, already there's this insidious thought in their mind that the female is not as important, that the female is lesser than. So it's easy to commit an act of violence on someone that you feel is lesser than what you are.
Yeah, it's
not as valued.
Yeah, and I shouldn't giggle. I'm not giggling at the subject, obviously. I'm just kind of having a slight chuckle to myself about how they think that they're making some sort of legitimate point when they choose to call me a girl's name because they think that that's some form of an insult. It's really a real self-tell, says more about them than it does about me. And again, I'm not whining about it, nor do I consider when it's aimed at me any sort of act of violence. I just find it to be juvenile, and insofar as what it means societally speaking, it speaks volumes as to how some people just think like that. And I'm not going to insinuate that any of these people that write me emails like that have done anything violent in this world to anybody, man, woman, or child, but it's just such a weird way to approach the concept or the art of insult. Anything else you'd like to say this morning, Denise, while we have you?
Well, just to add to that, okay, you have a group, for example, you have a group of 13, 14-year-old males. One says or does something. The other one says, oh, you're such a Nancy. The rest of them, what they're thinking is, Nancy is not okay. Nancy is not worthy. So right there, these seeds are being planted. That's the inherent danger. It's not whether somebody's offended by being called Nancy. It's what it means when a male calls another male and Nancy in that derogatory way, and that seed starts to grow into, well, if your name is Nancy and you're a woman, you're not deserving of the same respect as if your name is George or John.
It's how it comes across. Denise, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Patty. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And again, look, on a personal level, the insults, they come fast and furious. I mean, they really do. And the vast majority of insults are only offered by folks via email. And they're welcome to join us live on the air. No problem there. But it's remarkable to me just how many of these, and there's a handful. And look, again, I don't consider it an act of violence against me. I think it says more about them than it does about me. But just so many. And there's a distinct group of folks that do it to me all the time. And they can't help themselves by thinking that it's some sort of mockery and or some sort of insult that's going to actually hurt me or land in my head about just calling me a girl's name. I just find it bizarre. I mean, there's lots of other ways to insult me. God knows I deserve plenty of them. But that one always strikes me as just so weird. Let's see here. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3, speaking with the Ward 4 councillor here in town. That's Tom Davis. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
There's always a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
I want to start with some city stuff. There is a process within the city where speed calming can occur, and a lot of residents are confused by it. And so, basically what happens is you apply to the city transportation department and ask that your street be considered. They'll evaluate it based on traffic flow and speed. And based upon that evaluation, then there will be a survey distributed to the neighborhood to see the street to see how many people are interested in taking action. And based upon that being a positive, then there is a temporary speed humps put in, and that's the rubber or rubberized ramp type structures that go on your street. And now, so I have 2 different streets in my ward, Smithville Crescent and Empire, that had those this year. And of course, now what happens is because they're not plow proof, then they come up this time of year, and then the questions start again as to, okay, have we lost it? And the answer is no, but they come up for the winter, and the city then distributes another survey to the residents of the street to determine whether they feel it was successful and they want to continue with it, which is what will happen over the winter. And then based upon that result, then the city will contract with a contractor who will put the permanent speed humps in, which is usually what happens. As a rule, the neighborhood are in favor of it, and it continues to, but there's a process.
And some of the major thoroughfares, you simply can't put them down in the first place. People point to some of the obvious to me all the time, like Military Road, for instance. When it's a prime route for first responders, some of those routes simply cannot have some of these traffic calming measures. Yeah, I think there's availability of curb bump outs and stuff, but not speed bumps.
That's correct, and also if a road is too steep, it also doesn't qualify from a traction point of view. Okay, so that's out there. We got the results back from our radon study. I don't know if you recall, but back in the early winter, the city, as well as a lot of other municipalities within the province, participated in a funded radon study where residents could pick up a certain number of a kit, and they were distributed within the city equally through the wards. And so we got the results back from that. And, the way that they measure radon, which is a odorless, colorless gas that is generated from naturally occurring uranium in the soil, and then makes its way up into the foundations of people's homes and buildings. Anyway, so the results came back, and they measure it by becquerels per meter cubed. And so within the city of St. John's, and this was spread all throughout the city, but around 10% had concerning ones, which would be over 200 becquerels per meter cubed, up into over the thousands. I know you've had a gentleman who does this kind of work on speaking with you. It was actually Radon Awareness Month recently. Mm-hmm. But anyways, yeah. So 10% was over 200. Around 25% was between 100 and 200, which down in the States would be considered actually concerning, but that is 100 to 200 is acceptable within Canadian measures. And then around 64 to 65% we're under 100 for people's benefits. So we're just getting that information out.
It's helpful, obviously, and just so people understand the associated health risk, outside of smoking, the second leading cause of lung cancer in the country is radon gas. So it's important to have your house tested. We tested ours. We came up safe, thanks be to God, because some of the way to resolve the issue in your home, what they call active soil depressurization systems, can be pretty expensive. But when you're measuring that cost against your health, I suppose people will take the time and the money to try to rectify it. And then you've got to be constantly at, whether it be general ventilation and repeated testing into the future to ensure that what you've attempted has actually cured the problem?
That's right. The other thing, too, is if you are a smoker, it's a force multiplier, so it actually significantly increases your chances of getting lung cancer if you smoke and have radon present in your home. So that's another thing to bear in mind.
Yeah, by a factor of 6, I think.
Yeah. We actually had some kits left over. So we're going to have 200 kits on hand to give out again for people who might have missed the opportunity. So that's going to start November 26th at 4 p.m. And so basically you can contact Access or call 311 and we'll make arrangements for you to be able to pick them up. So there's that.
Okay.
So just remind residents that we're in the budget process right now and remind about the 8% possible increase in people's taxes if the council does not find ways to reduce. And that's the process we're in. And I haven't received really any emails. I got a couple of calls, but if people are concerned about their taxes going up, now's the time to speak out and send that message loud and clear to your elected officials. Okay, I'm going to take off the council hat, and I want to engage in the AI conversation. I want to start with the fact that the violence awareness is on, and it has been shown that children as young as 8 and 9 are being found by their teachers in school viewing pornography on their devices. And that has all kinds of knock-on impacts when it comes to respect for women in particular, because the way a lot of this pornography can depict treatment of women can be very, very negative at any age. But you can only imagine the developing brain of an 8 or 9-year-old boy, how that can impact their thinking and their brain development. So, that's something parents need to be really aware of. There are measures you can take. But again, as they become older and wiser, they will find ways like VPNs around some of the measures that parents can put in place. So it's really something parents want to get up to speed on and consult with experts and be really aware of it because it's a real thing.
Yeah, when you hear those stories, and some parents have reported to me that their child knows that one of their buddies in the classroom is looking at porn on his device during school. And here I thought we had a cell phone ban in the schools, not just for texting and or wasting your time or playing whatever popular games are on people's phones. But the young fella, and this was grade 8, the kid was looking at porn on his phone in the classroom during school. Wild story.
Right, and and then you take this to the AI creating deepfake porn. Now, that is very easy to take a picture off someone's social media, run it through a filter, and you can actually be creating deepfake porn, and it's something that the victim would have no idea about. And again, this is just all part of this world that we're rushing into when it comes to AI. And I just want to echo the words of Geoffrey Hinton, who is a Canadian-British scientist who's won the Nobel Prize in Physics for his help in developing the underpinnings of the large language models that we're utilizing now for the ChatGPTs of the world. And like most well-intentioned scientists, whether it's the people who have developed the nuclear bomb or the gentleman who invented the Keurig pods, unintended consequences. Unfortunately, once you've let the cat out of the bag, that's the world we're in. And he really has some very significant concerns, and it really behooves all of us to take the time to listen to him and a couple of other people who are sounding the alarm. But the concerns which most people can relate to, which is loss of occupation and jobs, which is a really big concern. But the real sobering concern that he says is that he cannot think of any organism that exists on the earth that is controlled by an inferior being. So, as AI becomes more and more evolved, it has that potential to start making its own decisions, and there are already cases where AI, left to its own devices, will actually deceive the humans that are trying to either shut it down or upgrade it, or even bribe them, to be self-preserving. This is like science fiction, but it's no longer science fiction. A lot of the militarization now is becoming more and more AI driven. In Ukraine right now, a lot of the casualties are actually being done by drones, which can just basically be told to go over there and go find someone who fits this profile, and it can be very specific. You can actually program them now to specifically go find a specific face and do what drones can potentially do. So all these things are all very, very scary. And like you said, there's no going back. If half of the GDP increases in the United States is driven by AI development and by for-profit motivation, then again, like a lot of the existential challenges that we all face, the humans, who are most directly going to be affected by it, have to become part of controlling and putting regulations in place. And then it brings you to the most recent revelation that we've paid $1.6 million for a study that from Deloitte that potentially has been generated by AI, and the question then becomes, if we have experts working for the province that have the ability to create the paper for the tender that goes out to do this study, then really they have the potential just to feed that into AI. And if all we're doing is paying $1.6 million to a company to use AI, then we might as well just be using it ourselves, because ultimately we have to write the parameters of the tender that a consultant might be using. So, if we had the ability to write the tender and then receive it and then make a decision on it, then really we don't need the consultant. So I'd like to call on government to maybe start looking at, and I can also include the city in this, start looking at AI, having our own professionals using AI to give us the same studies and the same results and save money. Because if that's the world we're in, then we might as well take advantage of it.
Appreciate the time. Thanks, Tom.
Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. And again, this is not for fear. This is for information. There's actual court cases, and plenty of them, about youth using these large language models like ChatGPT. There was one story about the young fellow was simply asking about who was the best soccer player. Was it Messi or Ronaldo? And eventually, the ChatGPT requested some nude photos of the 12-year-old boy. There's another story that's in the courts right now in California where this lonely, isolated teenager was going back and forth over extended amounts of time with one of these OpenAI or one of these large language models, and they were the AI was planting seeds of suicide in this child's mind and telling him, here's how to hide it from your parents, and died by suicide. I mean, all of a sudden, what was not a huge concern as recently as 12 months ago is now exponentially grown as a problem. It's just madness. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the NDP member for St. John's Centre, leader of the party. That's Jim Dinn. Jim, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Just having a little chat with regards to the software for EAL or English as an additional language for newcomers who enter into the school system. For the second year in a row now, the department has failed to renew the subscription. For 2 years in a row, I've had teachers, EAL teachers and itinerants calling really upset and concerned about this. And it seems when it makes it to the media, that's when all of a sudden the funding is now going to become permanent. Last year I was approached, the other part of this. This is this is not September. In both cases, no decision was made until several months into the school year. So last year, when teachers called me, they were told very clearly how they put it, not to expect to do their jobs the way they did them in the past. And of course, I think by this time the district was fully integrated into the department, and they took that to mean that there would be cost cuts to any travel they need to get to their students, that positions weren't going to be filled, and the software was not going to be renewed. So it took several letters into the Minister of Education about this, trying to get answers, getting vague responses, and I think just on the eve of the House opening, they got notice that that the funding was reinstated. I suspect it's because the House is going to open, and they probably figured I was going to be asking some questions about it. And this year, I figured, okay, the problem's solved. Same thing again. We got teachers who are relying on software telling me that it's not going to be renewed. And I think then the media starts asking questions, and all of a sudden it's been restored. Hopefully this time that this will not be repeated a third time. But I really think over the last few, this is an attempt by the department to cut corners, and unfortunately it has an impact on the students who are learning English as an additional language, and the teachers who are trying not only help them learn the English language, but also to overcome learning the gaps in their education. So it's frustrating to have to deal with this 2 years in a row. I can't hold the current administration accountable for it, but if it happens next year, it will be.
Sure. And just for people who are going to fight back saying, don't we have bigger things to worry about in the school system? Let's just paint a picture here. And this goes for every disruption or lack of support that's available for one student or another. It impacts the entire class. This is not just about children learning English as an additional language. If the teacher has to spend more time and fighting with software that's not reapproved for this year, or whatever the case may be, that time is taken away from other general duties as a teacher in the classroom. So while you might think that this is not a big issue, every issue where we don't have required supports for teachers and students impacts the entire class. We have to keep saying that because it's absolutely the fact.
Look, and you hit the nail on the head here. Not only with the teachers, how they can monitor students in real time and find the materials that they need. But here's the other part of it. Especially, let's look at. I used to get this especially from the primary and elementary grades. I taught high school. We had the Learn program, the literacy enrichment, and academic readiness for newcomers. And by this time, there's a lot of independence. But you put this at the primary and elementary level, where you might have a large class size, half of whom who might very well be newcomers who are just struggling with the language. Keep in mind, they might already know 2 or 3 other languages, just not English. They might have gaps in the learning. They might be dealing with trauma from whatever situation they left. So you combine that with the mental health issues and any other exceptionalities there, and it does not enhance the learning environment. But having the tools at your disposal is not only helping that teacher help those children, but also making sure that learning takes place in that classroom as well. So it's significant. It's about having the education system resourced properly to meet the needs of the students in that classroom, and it's about academic success and a success for the future as well, Patty. Simple as that.
And again, on the campaign trail, there was little to no or very little conversation about education, which is a head scratcher to me. Look no further. We can talk about absenteeism and violence, what have you. Academic outcomes, which all of those other issues dovetail with academic outcomes. The trend since 2003 is not encouraging. And if we're talking about long-term viability and prosperity here in this province, given the aging demographic and the fact that we've now 25% of the population is 65 and older, if we don't do well in education, whoever's last out, close the door. And I don't know why there's not more of a keen focus on education, because it is going to be the linchpin of future successes here in this province. The end.
I've said that, look, you got to stop treating education as a budget line, as an investment. And we did, when we were asked by the NLTA to take part in a town hall debate on this, we were only too happy to do that. You know, it's my passion. I know we did have in our platform several initiatives to address when it came to school violence, but for the most part, we could have been talking about it more as well. But at the same time, I will tell you, 25% of the population over 65, and I think in I don't know how many more years it'll be 50%. So unless we're finding ways to attract families, attract young people, making sure that young people have success, we're going to have a human resources deficit down the road in terms of the innovation, the workforce, the taxpayer base that we need to support the province and those who are in their senior years. It's as simple as that. That's a connection I see, and you don't do that by taking resources away from teachers that are vital in many cases to help their students succeed. It's as simple as that. I'm hoping, though, the new minister is going to make sure that this doesn't happen next year. But as I've already said, if it is, there will be questions in the House of Assembly on it. That's for sure.
Appreciate the time this morning, Jim. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Jim Dinn is the NDP member, St. John Centre, and of course leader of the provincial New Democratic Party. Let's get a break in. When we come back, lots of show left for you. If you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break and then we're coming back.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Joe. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing this morning?
Doing okay. How about you?
Good. Patty, I'm talking about the seniors. Now, I'm a senior myself, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 67. I'll be 68 now, January 30th. Now, you told me that we're getting $1,551 with our GST.
The maximum benefit and the seniors benefit is exactly that. That's correct, over the course of a year.
Okay.
Yep.
I got something to tell you. That's not true. I was talking to the GST crowd, right? He asked me how much I used to get from the GST. I said, I used to get $550. Then I said, last year, she went up to $650. Well, he said, that's the way you're receiving that $1,551.
It's different. It's not a GST increase, it's a provincial seniors benefit. So it's administered by the Canadian Revenue Agency, but it is not part of your GST, HST credit. It's a separate thing that is a provincial benefit.
So when will we receive it? With the GST that you told me?
Yeah, it comes out around the same time, but it is provincial monies that are very specific to seniors in this province that have an adjusted family net income of $30,000, just a little over $30,000, and it's a maximum of $1,551 for single seniors or couples with that net adjusted family income. Yep.
So you haven't got to apply for it?
Nope.
Oh, no, GST crowd told me difference.
Yeah, but it's not a GST crowd conversation. It's a provincial conversation. You have to have filed your taxes. If you file your taxes on time, you will receive this benefit. There's a partial benefit too that flows between, if your net family income or your single senior's income is between $30,000 and $43,350 or something like that. So there's a partial benefit as well. But it is a maximum benefit of $1,551. It's provincial monies. If you qualify, CRA will know it because of your net income as reported in your taxes. So it's not a GST conversation, it's a provincial conversation.
So I should receive with my GST in the mail.
You will get it if you qualify. You will get that particular senior's benefit. And
when I set out my taxes, I claim $25,000 because I'm on old age security, right?
Okay.
So I'm eligible, right?
Yep. You have to be 64 years of age at least by the 31st of December of the tax year in question. So
I'm 67 now.
Well, you're all set then.
Yeah. Now, you sure of that, though?
Yep.
Yeah, we think you're a team the year. Montreal, they lost the other night, 7-1, wasn't it?
They lost Columbus the other night, 4-3. They're doing okay. I mean, it's unfortunate that they've suffered some injuries when they were really rolling, but I think they look good. They're young, they're fast. The goaltending's been pretty good so far, so hopefully they keep it rolling, I suppose. They're the only Canadian-based team in the playoff spot at the moment, I think.
How's Toronto doing here? Because I'm not following up on it here. Not the playoffs comes.
They're hit and miss by. I don't know about the Leafs. They've got some obviously superstar players, but I don't know.
Is they doing anything with it? Is he winning?
Are they winning?
Yeah.
Certainly not as much as Leafs fans would hope they would be winning.
No?
Well, they're the last in the Atlantic.
Oh.
They've only got like 9 wins.
Nice balls when I was talking to you, Paddy.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I got one more thing to say.
Quick one. Go ahead.
I lost my cat about 10 months ago, right?
Your tent?
Cat. Pussy cat.
Oh, your cat. Okay, your cat.
Yeah.
Okay.
10 months ago. Now, I heard a cat born on the bridge there the other day. So I opened up the door. In she come. Went right to where Loch Hobby always used to go to and lie down, right? And went right to where I used to have a kitty that I pan to. And I never had a kitty pan there. So I still kept the kitty pan, I still kept the food and the kitty litter. So I put the kitty litter in her pan, and she went right to her pan, right where I was having to, under the sink up in the washroom, right? I called her by name, Willow, and she came right to me like she always did, and started banging into my legs like she always did, and flicking her toys up in the hair. Now, another guy came, and I mentioned his name, and said that was his cat. So he took her. Now she came back again this morning. Why would a strange cat come in my house if it wouldn't my cat? And go right to her cubbyhole, which she sleeps to, and go right where we used to have a kitty with her pen, but he wouldn't there at the time. Now, why would a strange cat come in my house and call her by name and come banging into my legs like she always done and flicking her toys up in the air?
I have no idea. So is it your cat?
Yes, it's my cat. She came back again this morning. Now, I'm keeping her this time because her daughter guy's cat name was Sherry, right? I seen her this morning. I sung out Sherry, Sherry, and she wouldn't even look towards me. I sung out my cat's name, Willow, and she ran right to me. Now, okay. I don't care if all hell breaks out. I'm keeping that cat because my landlord's mother told me to have my cat. That's who gave her to me. So would you blame me to keep her?
Well, I mean, I'm not getting involved in a custody battle over a cat, but if it's your cat, then you should keep it. If it's not, you should give it back.
Yes, it's my cat.
Okay, good enough.
I know it's my cat. I sung out Sherry, 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 and she wouldn't even look towards me, which was my body's cat's name, right? And when I sung out Willow, my cat's name, she ran right to me.
Well, I'm glad the cat came back. Appreciate the time. Thanks for the call,
Joe.
Joe.
Yes, 10 months.
Well,
no, and one more thing, Paddy.
Very quickly.
If I don't talk to you no more now before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
And the very same to you and Willow.
Okay, thank you, Paddy.
Thanks, Joe. All the best.
Have a nice day.
You too, pal. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. The cat came back. All right, there we go. Let's see here. It's 11:14 and 30 seconds, so we won't take Anne's call. But Anne's in the queue. She wants to talk about a nursing home down on the Burin Peninsula. Which one in particular, we'll find out. John's also in the queue to talk about the two court rulings regarding the fatal flash fire explosion out at the Bray Renewables plant. A man is dead. And so when the ruling comes down, it comes with a financial penalty, which always feels like it doesn't quite go far enough when we talk about safe workplace. And in this case, people severely injured and one man is dead. I believe his name's Sean Patton, right, from Clarenville. Let's get that break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 4. Anne, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I'm calling from the Burin Peninsula. Patty, I was wondering if you'd be able to give me a number that I can contact about a certain home here on the Burin Peninsula regarding their meals.
So you want to make a complaint about the meals?
Yes, I really do.
Okay, so do you know who operates the home? Is it
No, I don't, because I think it was newly just transferred over to somebody.
Yeah, because if it's a strictly private operator, you would have to... So it's a personal care home?
Yes.
Okay, well, there's a personal care...
Like for people with dementia now and Alzheimer's and stuff like that, right?
Well, if it's operated by the province, then you go to an outlet called Client Relations at Eastern Health to make that sort of complaint. If it's owned privately, then there's an association, the Personal Care Home Association. So it kind of depends on who actually operates it. If it is Eastern Health, I can give you that number. That's no problem.
Okay, can I have that number too, please?
Sure, here it comes. All right, here. Client Relations Office. Complaints and compliments. All right, here you go. Just waiting for this computer to move a little quicker than it generally does. Let's see here. I have a toll-free telephone number for you. It's 1-877.
Okay.
444.
Yes.
1399.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Patty, I was over there last week, and my aunt, she lives over there. She's 89 years old.
Okay.
And for supper, well, they brought her in a bowl of soup and a sandwich for supper. And she didn't like the soup. And when they come back in, they brought her back in 5 fish nuggets on a plate. With near a bit of mashed potato, no peas, no carrots, and not even a half a slice of bread. That's what she had to eat for supper.
Doesn't sound like a whole lot.
No. And the week before that, when they come in to bring in her meal, she said, "You're going to like supper today." And when they took the cover of it, she had a pancake and a fried sausage. And that woman is paying $1,869 a month over there for everything.
Yeah. The menus, if operated by the province, and even in the private sector, the menus are supposed to be set by a nutrition guide. And, the people will complain sometimes about what they see being served. But sometimes comfort food can come in various fashions. Like, I remember the story a few years ago. There was all big concerns about SpaghettiOs or something of the sort. But some people appreciate a bit of comfort food on top of what you might refer to as a traditional supper-sized dish. But that's the number I gave you. You can also email Client Relations, which is an easy one. It's just client.relations.
Okay, I will do that.
At easternhealth.ca. Yeah, let me know how you make out, Anne.
I will. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, I mean, we hear those type of complaints in whether it be care facilities or in hospitals regarding food, whether it be the quality or the caliber or the portion size. But if you want to take it on, we're happy to talk about it. Let's go to line number 1. John, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
Yes, sir. You mentioned on the before you went to the break there that about the incident that happened at Come By Chance with Brea. and the ruling that came down. It was the young man's, it was Peddle was his last name, I think.
Oh, Peddle, you're right. You're 100% right. I apologize. I said Patton.
Oh, yeah, no worries. And, there was a fine that was kind of a slap on the wrist that was given to Brea and to the contractor, Laurenville Mechanical, they're out of New Brunswick. And, the incident was brought on by some failures in their procedures that were aligned with the work that was going on. It's an old plant, as we know, and had been up and down since the early 70s, late 60s, since it was built. And I'm sure that there was a lot of issues surrounding the equipment. I think the leak of the gas, from what I understand from associates that worked out there, was from a part of the system that wasn't actually being worked on, but the gas had leaked into the generator and caused the flash when the generator was running. And the result was the fatality plus 6 or 7 guys that were injured. Also on the books in Newfoundland now, in Labrador, I'm sure you're aware of that. There was a fatality up there on the Labrador side of the border in Chevreville, which is in Quebec, but Tata Steel. There was a young man killed up there operating a bobcat in around heavy equipment, and the company, there are criminal charges being laid on that or pending. This goes back to Bill C-45, and I don't know how familiar you are or your audience is with C-45, the Westray bill. Are you familiar with that, sir?
I am familiar with Westray, yeah.
Sure. And that happened in 92, I believe it was, and by 2004, our Parliament brought in a law which brought the OH&S, Occupational Health and Safety regulations, under the Criminal Code. Because of what happened with Westray was a big political football there, as you know, the riding and whatnot. I won't get into all that. I'm familiar with it, but there's no need to get into it. And as a result, there was a lot of the dust that was there, and the hazards weren't eliminated. There was no process for that to be mitigated or controlled under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Those requirements are there, but the penalties and redress was a slap on the wrist at best. So it finally got to the point through lobbying by unions and by other parties that were potentially involved, where it went into under our criminal code. And the result of that was Bill C-45. And this is now when we look at situations like what happened with CBC and with TADA up there, where I think they announced the fines last week, and they said that criminal charges are potentially pending outside the fines, which could come down to not only the company, but the supervisors down to the working level, the working man's level. There are certain rights that we have in the workplace. The right to know, participate, and refuse, as you're aware of. There are controls that should be put in place with the workplace hazards, elimination, substitute, engineering, administrative controls, and your personal protective equipment. All those things come into play. But if companies don't participate in that, or if they do it only in I'll say lip service type fashion, where the employees aren't participating in the process, where companies aren't doing technical and involved approved work procedures, safe work procedures, or standing operating procedures, then incidents like this happen. Companies need to get things done. They need to be as efficient and effective as possible. They're there to make a profit, and that's not a dirty word. But also, we as workers in the workplace need to be protected, and we need to be able to participate in that protection. I've been involved in joint occupation health and safety committees most of my working life. I'm retired now, but being involved in those, I've had some firsthand experience, and I could get into a lot of detail here, but there's neither the time nor place. But I just wanted to bring this to your audience, and to I don't know if you've talked about it in the last couple of days, but I do listen to your program, not every minute, but I do participate or enjoy listening to it. But the feedback, people need to understand, and especially in the workplace, because it's there, but sometimes it's not there to the point where it should be. And the procedures are sometimes rushed through or sidestepped, circumvented for whatever reasons, or either the individuals at the workplace on the floor level, we'll say, out in the field, where incidents happen. And a company has a lot more on their plate if you have an incident, regardless of how intense it is, but especially with a fatality, you have to shut it down, freeze the incident as it is, and therefore your workplace is at a standstill. You can't do anything until the OHS people come in and investigate. And with a fatality, obviously you're going to get the RCMP or some other jurisdictional representative to come in and deal with that. So it's to everyone's benefit in the long run to make sure that the procedures are in place and that the working men are the workers, be it unionized, non-unionized, it doesn't matter, need to be involved in those procedures and follow the legislation. As we know, rules and legislation are put in place usually after some major incident, reactionary as opposed to proactive. Not always, but a lot of times that's the case. And then certainly with Bill C-45, that was the case. And sometimes the result is, as it was with these two poor guys that, I say poor guys, with this unfortunate incident where you have families literally torn apart by an incident that takes a loved member, it takes his life. It's terrible, but I just wanted to have a discussion on that, if you would.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, and I'll add to it. There was an internal audit at Occupational Health and Safety that showed quite clearly that they weren't always hitting the timeline of 2 years for an investigation. And even if they did hit it, sometimes by the time the investigation was brought forward to the court level, there was no evidence presented because the investigation, for all intents and purposes, did not happen. So we're not on top of the ball, or we're not on top of our game on that front, period. And just so people, just a general reminder, West Ray is, of course, reference to the West Ray mine disaster, and I think there was like 26 miners killed in that one particular incident. That was driven by the United Steelworkers 4 years before it finally became a law in the form of Bill C-45. So I'm glad you brought it up here this morning, and we don't know what the outcome will be of the RCMP investigation of the Brea incident, but we're told it's ongoing, so I wouldn't rule out criminal charges if it could be proven that there wasn't a care of duty displayed by the supervisors and or the company itself.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and it's easy to look that up. Anybody can Google that and find out the detail on West Ray. And the political background that was in there, that was in not only, it was the Premier of Nova Scotia's riding, plus it was Elmer MacKay's riding, who was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time and actually gave up his seat for Brian Mulrooney. We're going off here, but the point is that politics was very much involved in the opening of that facility, as you're aware, and the conditions in that mine were such that they weren't monitoring the gas and clearing the dust, which finally did ignite and caused, as you said, that there was a loss of 26 lives. The incident up in Shefferville was a young man operating a Bobcat and around cleaning up, we'll say, after large front-end loaders were moving material around. I worked up at that site with TADA before, and I'm familiar with what went on up there. And it's obviously the procedures weren't put in place from what the charges. I read the charges that are going against not only the employer and then their representatives, which were a contractor. I believe they're out of Quebec is where they're out of. But the point being, as you said, that the investigation has to be solid. The people that are doing the investigation have to have enough of a case built, like with any court proceeding, because this is what it is. The prosecutors have to have their case solidly in hand to make sure that the laws that are in place are followed and adhered to.
Yeah, that's right.
When this is what eventually happens. So
Yeah, it can't be an emotional contention. It has to be factual-based scope of care and some trail of whether it be verbal or paper to demonstrably prove that duty of care was not abided by. John, I'm late for the news, but I really appreciate you making time for the show. Thanks for doing it.
No, thank you for taking this, and it's just food for thought for a lot of people. We could get into you could have a program on this. I'm sure you understand, and I thank you for your time, and have a good day, sir.
The same to you. Bye-bye, John. Important conversations, obviously. Let's get a break in for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Jerry, you're on the air.
Close enough as Derek, but Jerry, I'll take Jerry for now.
No, you say Derek? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Derek, welcome to the show. My apologies.
That's okay, buddy. Listen, you had a guy on the tube here yesterday. He's calling for his father. His father cashed out some money for his funeral, and they took his provincial medical card away from him.
His drug card, yeah.
Okay, so I heard it right. Yeah, and I think I know what happened there. If you got RIFs or RSPs and you cash them, they're considered as income.
Yeah, it's taxable income.
Taxable income, yes. So when he cashed that out, it became taxable income, though. That's when he lost his provincial card. And same thing, and his son did say that the guy was in his 70s, and after 71 years old, you got no choice in the matter. They start deducting your RIFs. Your RIFs comes out and goes into your bank account. No matter if you want it there or not, it's automatic. At the age of 71, that starts coming out. So I hope everybody knows that, because I didn't know it. And all of a sudden, they see his money going in. I said, where does it come from? And then they gave me an income tax receipt. So I had to claim it. But that was my money that I put in there. Nobody put that in there, only me. That came out of my savings account a couple of times when I was trying to save on taxes that's what we were doing back in them days. You take out our RSP, and that's for you wouldn't have to pay so much income tax back. So you take the money out of your savings and buy an RSP, and then when you get old, like I am now, of course, then they tell you, that was income. But no, I already paid income tax on that when I was working. I put it in my savings, and then they say, put this money away for your retirement, for travel and all this kind of stuff. You might need that money for repairs to your house or repairs to your car, whatever, but they should not be treating it as income. Agree or disagree?
Your retirement plan, your RSP?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how it could be treated as anything but income. So you're saying it should be tax exempt? Well, no, and that's fine. That's no big deal, Derek. If we disagree, I'm just exploring the conversation a little further. So your suggestion is that RSPs upon withdrawal, after they're mature, because there's always going to be a federal surtax if you haul them out prior to the maturity dates. So you're suggesting that because you took the money to invest in the registered retirement savings plan, it should be withdrawn upon maturity tax-free. I just want to make sure I heard what you said.
Well, I don't mind the tax-free because you get the tax break in the first place. I know you got to pay income tax on it.
Yeah.
But then they call it, the remainder is called income. So that would affect everything. It affected my GIS, right? Because this money came out, and I didn't even want it to come out. So it was no good to me. I'll leave it to my daughter, because whatever comes out of it now, it just takes it out of my GIS. So why the hell did I put it in the first place for? These things should be told to you by your banking people that say, when you turn 71, you got to take it anyway. And by the way, this is going to be called income, as if you went out and earned it, and on a job or something. Well, there's some money that you put away for your retirement, and now they want that little bit of money back again.
Yeah, and I guess because in many tax years, people will rush to the bank to get an RSP to try to cut into what they owe the government in the form of taxes. So, yeah, I guess I get your point, I think.
I hope so. No, but okay. Well, I think that's what happened to Skip. I'm pretty much sure that because something else happened. I had a few investments. I invested in at the time with Marathon Gold and the TD Bank, and I wouldn't very much now, but they start coming out after our 71, not the investment itself, but if I ever earned any dividends on the investment, that comes out and that affects you, right? So you can't, you can't take the money out after 71 years old. You don't decide, that I'm going to leave it there or not. It automatically comes out. So I don't know who brought that rule in, but it doesn't help anyone. It just, because whatever they give you, they'll take it away for something else. But, he said that was your money that you earned, that you invested, or that you put in RRSPs. So now they're taking your money.
Yeah, you do have options, but your summary point that you should be made aware of these things by your banker is absolutely right. I would suggest there are options upon turning 71, I believe. Like, you can transfer that money. For instance, if your spouse is younger and has contribution room available in her RSP, you can transfer it into that, at least a portion of it. You can transfer it into a retirement income fund, a RIF, an RRIF. Other options, I'm not. Pardon me?
The RIF is the same thing, and a RIF or a RSP, it's still got to come out. Every year. Now it all don't come out, but a percentage have got to come out, right? And that goes into they automatically puts it in your checking account, and then they'll send you an income tax slip that you got to file when you does your income tax for the year. And of course, then that drives your income up, and if anything that they gave you, they'll try to claw it back again.
Yeah, I believe there's a minimum withdrawal annually from your RIF, and it's vastly different than the minimum withdrawal from your RRSP, which just automatically gets transferred, I think, in full, in one lump sum into your checking account or your savings account, what other vehicle that you have at your bank. But it's an interesting conversation. I don't pledge to know much more about it than what I just said, but I suppose I probably should. I am approaching that age. Hopefully I get to that age. Derek, while we have you, anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it. Just one more thing I'd like to say. You had a comment on earlier this morning there. You're talking about violence and all this kind of stuff. And, I would put this out to, and you might laugh at it, and the audience might laugh at it. But if men were in an abusive situation, and they had to get out of their homes, and most of them they got nowhere to go to, right? So that usually ends up, he might lose his temper, and violence will happen. If a man has somewhere to go to, like a home, like they have for the women, and why can't everybody use the same home? If you're a victim, you're a victim, right? So I think if that was put in place, the violence against women thing would come down big time, because a man feels trapped because he got nowhere to go to, and not only that, he's going to be persecuted in court because of the percentages.
Yeah, I'm not going to laugh at that or anything else. What I would say is that there's no question that there will be men who are victims of violence in the home. I don't know why anyone would argue different, and there is no such thing as a mercy shelter for men. I don't think it's probably appropriate for women who have fled violence need to be in a mercy shelter like... actually, I'll leave all these specific ones out of it. I don't know if there should be men and women in that shelter, but certainly if there was a need for a mercy shelter for men who are also potentially fleeing violence, that's something that the general population should be willing to discuss, including me, and I am.
Okay, but I still would like for people to have the conversation, because if you're a victim, if you're being abused in the home, if you're a man or a woman, I don't see why they can't be put in the same home. Your victims are victims, right? You're a human being, and so if you're saying that they shouldn't be allowed there, then when you still got the stigma of saying, well, he might go there and do something else. It's the wrong attitude.
I haven't given it a whole lot of thought, but I would imagine there's probably a baked-in fear of men in general if you've been on the receiving violence at the hands of a man. So that might be part of the thought process. I don't know. I haven't given it any thought until you mentioned it. But I do think, and we have talked about the fact there is no mercy shelter for men in this province, and there probably needs to be. So that much I think we can absolutely agree on. And Derek, I appreciate your time. Thanks for making it for the show.
Have a good one, buddy.
You too, man. All the best.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. Final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. John, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
I was just calling in regarding Derek's call about the RRSPs. I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification on how that works.
Please do. You're a CPA, right, John?
So, yeah, I'm a CPA.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially, whenever you contribute to your RRSP, you don't pay tax on that money in that year. So, for argument's sake, if you made $50,000 in employment income in a year, your employer is going to deduct tax at source. But at the end of the year, if you take, say, $10,000 of that from your savings account and put it in an RSP, then when you file your taxes at the end of the year, that $10,000 gets deducted from your total income for the year. So then your taxable income becomes $40,000, and you only pay tax on that. So if you've already paid tax on the $50,000, you'll get a refund on the additional $10,000. So whenever you contribute to an RSP, you get basically a tax break on that money. And the theory behind it is that when you're working, you're going to be in a higher tax bracket, so you get the tax savings then. When you get older and retire and you take the money out, in theory, you're going to be making less money, so you'll be in a lower tax bracket. So it basically just shifts the tax from a high tax bracket to a low tax bracket as you retire. But again, that only really works if you end up in a lower tax bracket when you retire. If you have a lot of investment income or RSP income, then ultimately it kind of works out to the same at the end. So I don't know if that kind of clarifies it at all.
It does. I mean, basically, if I, here comes tax season, I go get another RSP if I have contribution space, I'm basically just deferring any tax upon removal at maturity or withdrawal, from my RSP, basically.
Yeah. So whatever your earnings are for a year, you pay tax on by your employer. If you contribute to an RSP, then you get that basically any tax back. So when you withdraw the money, that's when the government's going to take their tax on you.
Right.
Because they gave you the money back when you put it in. So when you take it out, that's when you pay the tax.
Right. And if you take it out early, there's a surtax on top of the income bracket that you're in.
Exactly. Now, and if you want to avoid that, then you can use the TFSA. But you don't get any tax break when you put the money in. But when you withdraw the money, it's all tax-free. So if you end up with some gains in a TFSA account, you get the tax break at the end as opposed to at the beginning. So it's a way to kind of, depending how you want to plan for your retirement.
As a CPA, your general thoughts on tax-free savings account. For me, and the advice that I've been given, it's a pretty attractive option for every little bit of extra money you have kicking around, if there's ever such a thing as extra money. Your thoughts on the tax-free savings?
Yeah, it kind of depends on if you know what you're doing with your investments. If you invest money and it does well, then yeah, you can get a significant benefit. I was somewhat successful recently with an investment here in Newfoundland and worked out. So it was a big benefit and didn't have to pay any tax on it. So if you can afford to do it and you invest properly, then there's a significant advantage to doing it.
John, really appreciate the time and the professional background here as a CPA. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no sweat.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
It's helpful. I mean, basically, that's why people rush to the bank to get an RSP if they have contribution space come tax time, because you basically get a tax break this year to defer to down the road when your RSP matures. All right, line number 1. Tom, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I guess I'm going to repeat what the gentleman just said, because I was listening to the call and I said I'd call in. I am not a CPA, but I have been involved with investing and financial investing for so long that it's become second nature to me. I think the person before me answered most of the questions, and I just want to reiterate the use of the TFSA before I get to the point. The TFSA is a fantastic investment vehicle. I have used it and I continue to use it, and it's fantastic because every bit of money that accumulates in the TFSA accumulates tax-free. Now, you don't get the deduction when you contribute to it, unlike an RRSP. But for Derek's issues with respect to the RIF, as he said so correctly, when you get to be 71 years of age, the RRSP is converted to a RIF, and it goes into a RIF, and how he chooses to invest that money is up to him, depending on who he's with. He can put it into mutual funds. He can put it into deposits, certificates of deposits, some kind of interest-bearing things, whatever he chooses. But at that age, and the subsequent years from that, every year after that, a portion of it is taken from his RIF, and like he says, put into his bank account, and he is taxed for the amount that he is given.
Yep.
Now, I think it's at about age 71, the rate is about 5%. So 5%, if he has $100,000 in the RIF, he gets $5,000 put in his bank account, and he must declare that as income because it was deducted from his income when he put it in there. So it's added to his income again. So that's his issue. Income is increased by 5%. In my particular case, because my wife is so much younger than me, a couple of decades, I get to use her age.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of that, my deduction for my RIF is significantly less than my 77 years of age that I am. So I think to answer his question and many other questions is that when you turn 71, all your RRSP money is put into a registered income fund, and then every year after that, a percentage of it is deposited in your bank account and it becomes income. I hope that answers his question.
It does, and you've had the last word, Tom. Appreciate you making time.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, and not to nitpick, it doesn't increase your income by 5%. It was 5% of 100,000, so it increases by $5,000. What percentage of your income that is depends on your income. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.